Okay.
Welcome back to the show, Ashley, for number 7.
Hello.
It is now your 7th time on the show.
I love coming on here. I really do. I'm glad I met you. I think, how did I even meet you on one of those,
Faces
like
of
the dark side of the
was
screen
it
or
Faces?
something?
No, was it Faces of Opiates?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, because I found a lot of people on that page. Like that's how I originally found people was on that page when somebody would post like a before and after. I would like comment like, "Hey, be on my show. Tell me your story." And
Yeah.
then eventually you've sent me like a dozen people, I feel like.
I got people everywhere and a lot of people in recovery on my Facebook friends. So I'm like, hey, if anybody wants to do this.
Yeah, that's
And I
awesome.
feel like this is a lot easier than like going to a meeting and like giving a lead in front of a whole bunch of people. Right now, it's just me and you. So,
Yeah, and you know what they say is a meeting is two alcoholics having a conversation.
yeah.
So, because how long have you been going to meetings? Like, when did you discover what meetings were?
Well, I've been in and out of recovery for a while, you know what I mean? But I started going to meetings probably the first time I got sober in 2017. I started going to meetings right away. Um First there was this meeting in Tiffin that was not AA or NA. It was just like recovery support group, and that's what I started going to. And actually my mom went with me because I didn't have anybody to like go with me and I didn't want to go alone. So
Okay, so that was like 7 years ago now.
yeah.
And I started going in 2018. I went to one AA and one NA meeting back in like 2013 with my then fiance because like our parents were making us go. And so we each went to like her for AA and me for NA. And I didn't step foot into NA again for 5 years. Like
I
it took
totally get
me,
that.
what's that?
I said I totally get that. I'm not into NA, so
Yeah. I'm in NA now. AA what is just so strict around me that I have to talk about alcohol only and they don't,
oh,
you know what I mean? Like I can't talk about drugs in AA around here.
oh well, that sucks. Yeah, I've got a really good home group where it's all women's group, and it's a majority like older women. Like my sponsor's like 75, but they're like they know, you know what I mean. I'm a drug addict. A lot of the girls that come from like the sober living house, a lot of them are drug addicts, and they don't care. You can even introduce yourself. Hi, I'm an addict alcoholic, or I'm an addict, whatever.
Yeah, I still
Yeah.
introduce myself as an addict alcoholic. Even in NA, I introduce myself as an addict alcoholic. Shit, even in GA and Gamblers Anonymous, I introduce myself as a compulsive gambler, an addict, and an alcoholic. If you name it, I'm probably it. Like that's how I introduce myself in GA. Um, and I've been going to those meetings since July 13th, so a
Okay.
little over a month now. I only do them on the weekends. I found a meeting based in Vegas because I figured if anyone can quit gambling, it's people that live in Vegas.
Yeah.
So my NA meeting is based out of Providence, Rhode Island.
Okay.
It's a solid group. My sponsor just celebrated 30 years last week.
Awesome.
So I wanted to do NA this time because um I went through the steps in AA, but like I did them so quickly that because you know how it is, you can go through the steps rather quickly in AA.
Yeah.
In in NA, there's a workbook like this
Yeah,
thick.
I know. I've seen it and I'm like, that's crazy. People do that. But yeah, I've seen it.
I haven't started my first step yet. By the time this comes out, hopefully I have done my first step. I've been so busy, recording episodes that I don't have free time to like sit and write. because
Sure.
it's a ton of questions you got to answer in order to move on to step 2. And it's like how you have to share your 4th step with your sponsor. You got to
Yeah.
share each step and each answer with your sponsor.
Yeah, that's just, I mean, I don't got nothing against that. I guess it's just any NA meeting I've been to is just like got shitty people and they're just like judgy, or like I went to a meeting where they said, if you're on gabapentin or Suboxone, you are not sober. And I was like, what? I'm like, I'm on gabapentin. And I'm
Yeah.
not
So
sober. Like, what is even going? And I looked at my friend, like, what kind of place do you got me in right now? And I didn't like that. And then the ones in Tiffin, there was just this one guy who was super judgy and couldn't
yeah,
do it.
I tried quitting gabapentin, and it really took a toll on my sleep
Mm.
because I take gabapentin for my restless legs. So I was like, eventually, I was like, all right, I'm gonna quit gabapentin and see what happens. And I went like a month without it, and I slept like shit the entire month. And I was like, fuck this. I am calling the pharmacy and having them fill my gabapentin back again.
Did you
And
withdraw it all?
it's tough to say. I'm sure I did. I've been on it for like 5 years.
Yeah,
I've been on it since I been in recovery, so that's 2018. I've been on it for 6 years. So
me too.
I'm sure part of the sleep, part of the like not sleeping was the withdrawal from gabapentin. But I take 600 milligrams at night, and
Okay.
I don't take it during the day. I'm prescribed to take it 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, and 3 in the evening. That's what I'm prescribed, and I used to take it that way too,
Oh,
and
wow.
3,000 milligrams a day.
That's a lot.
Yeah, so I cut back down to only 1 at night instead of 3 at night and none during the day. So I should have probably tapered myself
Yeah.
and did, a half a pill, because they're not capsules, they're pills.
Okay.
You,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
probably take the 300 milligram capsules.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? You take the little yellow capsules?
Yeah.
I take the big white pill. So I
Yeah.
could have broke it in half and then just taken 300. That's probably what I should have done. But instead, hard headed me, I'm like, I'm just going to quit totally. And shit just didn't work out. And I was like, nope, I'm getting back on gabapentin.
I
So,
notice if I forget to take mine like for one day, like if I forget to take it in the morning and it gets to be like the evening time, I'll start getting a really bad headache. And I'm like, dude, did I take my gabs today? No. And I got to go take them. About an hour later, I feel fine.
yeah, it's not a matter of forgetting, because like I have a pill bottle, like pill bottle. I have one of those, like, because I'm on so many different medications for like mental health and all that shit, and sleeping, like sleep meds. So I have, one of those morning, afternoon, and night kind of
Yeah,
things for the
I do
weekly.
too.
So, and the only time I forgot to take my meds was like Sunday, I think it was like this past Sunday. I had woke up and I got like into GA and I started doing interviews. And then I realized at like 3 o'clock, like, holy shit, I didn't take any of my meds, like my blood pressure medicine,
Oh, no.
shit that I should have definitely taken. And I was
Yeah.
like, I gotta take my meds. And then I forgot for another hour again.
I be doing stuff like that, dude. It's the worst.
Yeah, so I started GABA 6 years ago, and then I got off of it for like a year, and when I was on 300 milligrams, but I'm so frustrated. I just got a text from somebody that I like 12 step last night, and he promised me he was going to be in my noon meeting today,
And he
and
wasn't.
no, and I called him. He said, "Call me before to remind me." I called twice, and he's the one that I reached out to you to see if you had knew of any rehabs that don't take insurance.
Yeah.
And I was like, you got to sign up for Medicaid. Like, I talked to him for like a half hour last night on the phone. I'm like, you got to sign up for Medicaid. He just texted me twice, and I'm like pissed because he said he was going to show up to that meeting. Because lately he, like, I used to do opiates with him. Like, we used to, snort Roxy's together. And when I quit 6 years ago, he quit too. Except for he then started doing a lot of coke. And then he eventually turned into doing a lot of crack. So now he smokes crack.
Man.
And he's like, how did I get here? Easy. Like, you did coke and then it stopped working. Like, how did you get here? Like, bro, it's so frustrating.
It is very frustrating.
Like,
and it's frustrating when you're trying to get somebody to go somewhere and they won't.
They're all talk.
They need to go.
When they're all talk, when they're like, yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And then they don't.
I got a friend, I don't know if he's seen me make the post, like, oh, nothing, just watching the homie twack on Facebook all week. Dude, this guy I know, he's got to be on meth. He's, like, recording videos. Like, I'm like, dude, I can't stand that, like, he's got access to a phone and is able to post these videos right now. You know what I mean? Like, that's what's making me so upset. He's making these crazy videos, talking crazy stuff about God. He's going to save all the children in the world and fix all the broken women. And he just looks like you can tell, like, you need to go to bed, dude. He just ended up in New York. And so since he keeps telling me, well, God's telling me blah, 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 I said to him, well, God's telling me I need to get you into treatment. And he's like, oh, word? He is? Let me send you my pin. And that's when he sent me where he was at. And he's in Rochester, New York. And I'm like, what is even going on? I was like, you need to come back home so I can get you in somewhere and you can just be comfy and get your head all the way together. And he's like, what do you want me to do? Walk? And I'm like, well, how'd you get there? And then he stopped messaging me. Well, he's ended up getting in contact with family and got a bus back to Ohio, was picked up in Cleveland and taken immediately to a rehab center. Within a couple hours of him getting there, he made a Facebook post. So he left.
I was going to say, so he's obviously not there.
Mm-hmm. And the Facebook post was like crazy, like he still hasn't been to bed, so.
Meth's a hell of a drug.
What are you gonna do, dude? He's like ate up right now. I know, like.
Have you ever done meth? Have you ever done meth?
On accident, one time.
On accident? How do you do meth on accident?
Because it was supposed to be cocaine, and it was like really powdery and looked like cocaine. But right after I snorted it, I knew it wasn't. It burnt so bad.
Isn't that why they call it a hot rail?
Maybe.
I've heard that expression hot rail before.
Me too, but I don't know what it is.
I've avoided 3 drugs my entire life, and it's crack, heroin, and meth. Those are the only 3 that I haven't done. I have been tricked into smoking PCP a bunch of times.
I haven't done PCP.
Good old angel dust. I was told it was weed both times. They call it wet when you mix it with weed. And I smoked a blunt with this dude at a Halloween party. And halfway through the blunt, he was like, by the way, it's wet. I'm like, what the fuck? And I had just done like 15 Jello shots, which is way too many Jello shots to be doing. And I started like freaking out, having a bad trip. I walked home like 2 miles, threw up everywhere, stained my shoes red from all the Jello shots that I was throwing up. I had just a horrible night after that. Now, cut to the 3 years later, I'm at a Blink 182 concert and I'm pre-gaming in a parking lot. And this was in Massachusetts, so like weed was decriminalized. So
Okay.
I got caught with like 6 joints in a cigarette pack, and all they did was confiscate my cigarette pack and just like went on their merry way. I'm sure they went and smoked.
Dang.
Um, so I was like drinking, but pissed that I lost my weed. And this dude that I was drinking with was like, "Hey, I have some in my car if you want to go smoke." I'm like, "Okay," because obviously if someone says smoke, I'm like, "Okay, I'm there." And
Yeah.
we're smoking out of a Gatorade bottle. Like that should have been my first clue that this was like fucked. And after I hit it like twice, he's like, "By the way, that's angel dust." I'm like, "Oh, cool." Um, it started pouring rain. So I left my cigarettes. I mean, I left my cell phone in my friend's car, and all I brought inside the concert with me was the ticket to get in and my cigarettes and my lighter. And that's the only thing I brought. My wallet stayed in the car. I wasn't going to drink. I'm going to embrace this high, and I'm not going to let it ruin my night. And I had an amazing night. I don't recommend
Good.
doing angel dust, but it's like smoking acid where you just start tripping balls and you
Huh.
get a little bit of a body high, but you start tripping. And the night was awesome. And again, I'm not encouraging anybody to go out and smoke some PCP, but at the same time, it wasn't bad once I
I
embraced
don't
the
think it's very prevalent, like, or in my area, because I don't think I've really ever talked to anybody that's done it. You know what I mean, or whatever, or been able to get it, or I don't just don't think it's around
Well,
here.
the odd thing is, it was in New Jersey in 2008, and it was in Massachusetts in 2011. So it was, but I have also found acid in both places too. I found acid in Jersey, and I found a connection for acid in Massachusetts because I
Yeah,
used to love tripping. I used to love taking acid. I didn't like mushrooms.
me
Just
too. That's why I got brain damage from tripping too much
from mushrooms.
on acid and ecstasy, doing a lot of ecstasy.
I've done ecstasy twice, and it was okay. I didn't like have a great. It was okay high. Someone already always knows that you're on ecstasy when you're on ecstasy because you're just like grinning ear to ear, like you're just
Yeah.
like it's written on your face. And acid, I loved acid. The body high, the hallucinations, the introspective thoughts that would go through your head, like the mind fuckery that it would give you. I talked to somebody who did acid when they were like 13. I'm like, you can't even appreciate acid when you're 13 years old.
I think
Like,
the first time I did it, I was 15.
and how did you have a good night with it?
Well, first, like I was with my boyfriend and he had done it before, so he knew what he was looking for. I had no idea what I was looking for. So, like, he started tripping and I got mad and I was like, I'm going home. And I went home and I was laying on the couch and there was this big baby picture of my brother with stripes on his shirt. And the stripes on his shirt like went whoop. And I was like, what? And I called him. I was like, you need to get here right now. And he came out to my mom's house, my mom and dad's house. And I was like dying laughing in front with my dad right there. My boyfriend's like, oh my God, we got to get you out of here. Like, you got to go to your bedroom or something. You're acting out of control. Yeah. And then after that, I was just doing it a lot.
Yeah,
When's the first time you started like doing drugs? How old were
uh,
you?
I was 11 when I started drinking, and I was introduced to weed when I was 13, and then I was introduced to muscle relaxers when I was 16 or 17. Um, I was 17 when I was introduced to muscle relaxers. I was a big drinker. Like, that's why I identify as an alcoholic and an addict, because I started drinking at 11 years old. And
Yeah.
I discovered when I discovered opiates, like, it was off to the races. That's
Mm-hmm.
but like, so here's my progression. I did drink at 11, smoke weed at 13, um muscle relaxers at 16, 17. I can't remember, somewhere in there. Um and then perks and 30s, Roxy 30s, when I was 22. And a month before I got into pills, I went on this little bender for like, alcohol stopped working for me after 21. I went so hard at the bar when I was 21 years old for that entire year that it stopped being fun. And that's kind of why I can pinpoint which drugs I was doing and when. It was September of 2008. I was about to be 22, and I got into acid for the first time, mushrooms for the first time, cocaine for the first time, ecstasy for the first time. I was trying all of these drugs because I wanted to try to find something to take the edge off, because alcohol was no longer taking the edge off for me anymore. And weed wasn't working anymore. Nothing was taking the edge off. And then in October of 2008, like, acid was amazing. It took the edge right off. But the problem is you needed 18 hours to trip, and you needed the entire next day to come down. And so, like, it's not something that I could do every day. So I was like, I love this, but I can only do it like when I'm off work the next day. And I have to like plan for a trip. And then I discovered pills. And I remember it was a Friday night, and it had to have been like around the 20th. It was like a week before the Phillies won the World Series. And I stayed in on a Friday night, and I had my own place when I was 20 years old. So a lot of people would come over to drink and smoke because like they lived at home with their parents, and they would come over just to get out of their own house to smoke. And I was sitting at home, and I was like, "Hey man, can you have any weed I could buy off you?" He was like, "No, I don't have any weed, but I do have these." He had a bag of tens. And I was like, "Okay, I'll take two of them." Like, $20. Okay, I'll take two of them. Handed him a 20. He left, and I had never been more high in my life. And I remember laying back on my recliner and thinking, this is it. This is what I've been looking for this entire time. And the next day I said to him, "Hey, do you still have that bag full of pills? Can I get like 3 of them?" And that was my progression into pills. Eventually, I met another dealer who was more consistent at the bar. And he was like, "I don't got tens, but I have these 31s that are little and blue. And they're $20 a piece for 30 milligrams instead of buying tens for $10 a piece."
Sure.
I'm like, hell yeah, I'm saving money. So, because at the time in 2008, they were $20 for a Roxy 30. So I was getting a good deal in my head. And then he was like, "And you can break them up and snort them." I'm like, "Okay, I'll try that." Break it up, make a line, snort it. Felt amazing. The drip was amazing. I don't like the cocaine drip, but I love the pill drip. The
Mm-hmm.
cocaine drip feels like I'm going to vomit, like something's stuck in my throat. But the way that 30s tasted to me was so good. And there's sometimes when I can almost like taste like the pill, like, oh, that is some residue from 2018 up there still. um, but yeah, once I found those Roxys and I could snort them, I think the worst time ever was when it was the Super Bowl of 2009, and I was doing 30s every night at this point. And we could not find shit. Everybody was either not answering their phone where they didn't have anything. And finally, we got a hold of somebody who had 105s or 55. It was 55s. And so we bought the entire script offer for like $100.
Hell
And
yeah.
my friend and I, not realizing how much fucking Tylenol was going to be in them, started like breaking them up and snorting these giant rails. And so much was just getting stuck in my nose that like I'm like, what are we even fucking doing? And I just ate like 10 of them at once. You know what I mean? Like it was
You
almost
must be addicted to the snorting.
I was so addicted to snorting.
Yeah.
Um, and because you were that way too, right? You weren't an IV user, you were a snorter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you freebase heroin too, or did you just snort it?
No, I've only ever, well, I snorted it and I've shot up twice.
And you didn't like shooting up?
No, thank God. Somebody else had to do it for me and all that. So, yeah, I'm just thankful I didn't like it. I didn't like it, so
What about it
hell
didn't
yeah.
you like?
I don't know. I I just felt I wouldn't be able to stick myself, and because I got little veins too. Anytime I go to get blood drawn, they talk about how little my veins are and stuff. Like I feel like I can barely even see my veins.
I
I just didn't think I'd be good at it, and somebody would always have to do it for me. I don't always have somebody like this is easier. I can just ding, ding, ding. I remember even being with people who shot up and I snorted it, and they'd be sick. We'd both be sick, and I could just hurry up, crush, crush, snort, and they'd have to still do this whole ritual thing. And I'd be like, see, I already feel better. Like, you should just do this.
well, people get addicted to the ritual.
Yeah, that, and they get addicted to the needle too. Just
Yeah, oh
like you
yeah.
do snorting, they get addicted to the needle.
Did you have like a certain straw you always had with you, like in your purse?
Like back in the day when I used to do pills, I had like a part of my tampon applicator that I kept, and it had so much white shit caked inside of it. It was stupid, but I'd do if I was sick, I'd scrape that thing out too. But
Oh, I
once
definitely
I got so far, it was just whatever I had closest to me, like a dollar bill, a piece of paper I had to rip up to just whatever.
I would always keep my because I would buy them in bulk. And I would always keep them like in a pill bottle, like a nondescriptive pill bottle, just a blank one. And I would stick a straw. I would cut a straw, and it would be like that big, and I would put it inside the pill bottle this way, and it had a $1 bill wrapped in there too. And this way, I could take the dollar out, crush it underneath the dollar, and
Sure.
then have the straw. You know, there was a lot of the times that I had full size straws in my car that I used to like use when I was driving because like I think I told you before I would hold the straw in half, and then I would drop it in, I would crush it with my teeth and then extend the straw out and snort, and I would do like 4 at a time inside the straw. And so what I started doing was I would put the straw in my drink and then sip my drink so that I could get all the residue out of it and into my body. When I went to rehab, I threw away so many straws. Like I
Yeah.
had so many straws.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I would just keep my dope like already all smashed up if it was rocky, already in a dollar bill folded up. Just keep it in my wallet where I could just pull it out, open it up, scoop a little bit off, do it.
I had a cop trying to tell me that I had paraphernalia in my car because I had a pill crusher in my car.
Yeah, I mean, I'd prove it. So,
Yeah, he was like, this is paraphernalia, right? I'm like, I bought it at CVS. It's for my dogs. It's how I get my dog treats. Or dog milk. And he was like, yeah, okay. We just found 20 pills on you, dude. Like, like literally, I had 20 on me when I got arrested. And they tried telling me it was intent to distribute in the school zone. Like, motherfucker, you pull me over in the school zone. I wasn't in the school zone going, come here, kiddies, buy my Roxy 30s.
Well, if you're within like 1,000 feet of a school, you get in trouble.
Yeah, and the cop followed me from my dealer's house for like a mile, and then he pulled me over in the school zone.
Well,
Like
he knew
he,
what he was doing then if he was
yeah,
watching you. He knew where you came from.
yep. And I had Pennsylvania tags in New Jersey. So,
Okay, yeah.
and I was driving an old cop car. The irony. The sheer irony of driving in an old cop car and getting arrested.
Mm-mm. So what happened with that? Did you get charged or?
So what happened was I did 3 buys for them.
Okay.
I came to admit it. I did 3 buys for them, and they were all bullshit. Like, I just already had the pills on me, and I pretended like I was doing a buy. And then I went to rehab, and I
Okay.
totally forgot. Like, I did. I went to my preliminary hearing high as balls, just like high as shit in my preliminary hearing. And then 2 weeks later, I decided to go to rehab. And like while I was flying to Los Angeles, I was like, oh shit, I have court next week. Like, it dawned on me that I had court. Um, so when I got to rehab, I'm like, what do I do? And my caseworker was like, I'll call the court and tell them that you're in treatment and they can't do anything about it until you come back to Jersey. I said, okay, as long as that's like how this works. And then I was in Los Angeles for like 5 months. And when I came back, I told them I was back and we set a court date. And I was facing intent to distribute in the school zone, paraphernalia, having an eighth of weed on me, and 20 unidentifiable pills, blue pills. And they were like, where's your lawyer? Like, the prosecutor was like, where's your lawyer? I was like, I don't have a lawyer. He's like, why don't you have a lawyer for all this? And I was like, because I already went to rehab. Like, you guys are going to give me whatever you're going to give me. There's nothing I can talk my way out of this. And it is what it is. And he was like, so you're just going to choose not to go with a lawyer? I'm like, what is a lawyer going to do for me? I'm guilty. I had those pills on me. I was going to use those pills. I wasn't going to sell them. I had a bad problem. That's why I went to rehab. And he was like, did you go to rehab because you had all these charges? I said, no, I honestly forgot all about it. Like, I said that to the judge. I was like, honestly, I went to rehab and I forgot all about this. And then I remember when I got out there. And he was like, so no one made you go to rehab? I said, no, I went because I wanted to go. And he was like, well, I appreciate your honesty. So instead of charging you for everything, I'm going to give you a $500 fine. And we're going to write it up as unidentifiable pills instead of Percocets. And we're going to write it up as green leafy substance instead of marijuana. And he let me go. No probation. No probation. Just $500 fee for coming to court that day. No jail time, no probation. It didn't even go on my criminal record. Which I had a record from 2013 from when I was high on Xanax and stole a bunch of shit and pawned it.
Fucking Xanax.
Fucking Xanax, man. I got into 3 car accidents on that same day. Like, literally on the same road, sequential from each other. Like, I was driving 45 minutes. I was house sitting for someone. And Xanax was like, hey, it'd be a good idea to like take a bunch of the jewelry from this house that your house sitting at and sell it. And then you can buy more of me. That's what Xanax told me. So of course I listened to Xanax and I'm like, oh, I'm the smartest criminal ever. And I sold it at the closest pawn shop ever, which is like a rookie mistake.
Yeah.
And then I'm driving back to town to buy more Xanax. And I got into 3 car accidents in that 45-minute drive. 3. And I wish I was exaggerating that number, but it was 3. And I can't say 3 enough. And none of them were like total in my car. They were all like fender benders. Like I wasn't stopping fast enough because I was high on
So
Xanax. Did Xanax make you steal?
I was never a stealer ever. Even on Xanax, I never stole. But everybody I know is like not allowed at Walmart for stealing from Walmart.
Did you have any kind of criminal record at all?
Possession of marijuana, a lot of speeding tickets. They were always me on my way to go get drugs and then telling me I had to hurry up. So I got speeding tickets and then my OVI for being on Xanax and heroin.
What is that, operating a vehicle intoxicated?
Yeah.
And because they call it something different in every state. It's basically a driving while intoxicated, driving under the influence.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you were on heroin and Xanax?
Yeah.
I think you told me
And
this
smoking
story.
weed. Yeah.
Did you like go down like an embankment or something? Like, did you go off the highway and like, what happened?
I was driving down this country road and I nodded and went over the center line, over the left lane, drove through a field, woke up going through the field and was so fucked up I fell back out and woke up hitting a ditch, one of the really big deep ditches, and I was just straddling it like perfectly. And just woke up when the airbag hit me because I nodded out, so I was all limp. So I guess that's good. I guess it.
Well, yeah, apparently it's better to be dead weight. That happened. I don't know if I can tell this story, but somebody I know was in a car accident. They were in the passenger seat and they were really high and drunk, so their body was more dead weight, like all limp. And when the car accident happened, they actually didn't go, like they didn't have severe injuries because of it, because I guess if they were awake during it, then they would have braced for impact or would have fucked up their arms, like all that kind of shit. It's weird that if what your body does when you're under the influence.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the one that I tried 12-stepping. And he's never been the same since that accident. Oh, yeah.
He's got to do something though, you know. He's got to want to do something, and you can only do so much until they're really, really ready.
Yep. I just read part of the message. He said he's back home with his parents. So
good.
That's hopefully he's not lying. I'm gonna call him after this and be like, "What the fuck, motherfucker?"
Yeah, that's
to see if he'll join tomorrow's meeting, because it's only Monday to Friday. Like the meeting I go to is Monday to Friday at noon.
That's cool. It's every day, basically.
Yeah. So I work 11 and a half hours a day. I'm off on Wednesdays. So like my shift used to be 10 and a half hours a day, because I would be off on Wednesdays and weekends. And then because it's a half-hour lunch break, so it'd be a 10-hour shift with the half-hour lunch break taken out. But when I had my relapse, I came to my boss and I'm like, "Hey, is there any way I can work an extra hour later and take an hour-long lunch break to go to my meeting every day at noon?" And they were like, "Yep, that's fine." So instead of a half-hour lunch, I get an hour and a half long lunch, and every day at noon, I clock out at 11:45, smoke a cigarette, hop back into my NA meeting that I do on Zoom, and I get that done. I smoke a cigarette, and I come back in for work. Sometimes I smoke 2 cigarettes. If I have the time, I'll smoke 2 cigarettes real quick. Or maybe I'm a minute late to my meetings. I smoke 2.
Yeah, I don't think cigarettes. I don't know if I could ever quit cigarettes.
I'm not ready.
I I don't know. I know they're not good for you, but I mean, I feel like
I'm
I've
just,
already come so far.
I'm just not ready. It's the same logic as to why I didn't do rehab in my 20s. I wasn't ready. Like, I needed to go to rehab in my 20s plenty of times. The entire time I needed to go to rehab, but I didn't want to go to rehab. When I wanted to go to rehab, I stopped taking opiates and it worked. I need to stop smoking cigarettes. I know that I need to stop smoking because they're bad for you, but I don't want to stop smoking yet because it's my, my go-to, escape that I still use as like, oh, that was a good meal. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like that was a long day of work. And or this has been a long day already and it's 9 a.m. You know what I mean? So like I'm
Yeah,
just not at that. My wife just quit. She's 40. So that gives me 2 years before I have to quit because I'll be 38 in end of September. So I have 2 years and like a month before I need to quit.
sure. My boyfriend quit. He vapes now. Does your wife vape?
She quit vaping. She quit smoking
Oh, okay.
cigarettes like 5 years ago, and she's been vaping ever since. And then she used the nicotine patch to quit vaping.
Hmm.
And like I chew gum all day long when I work. It's $43 for a box at CVS. But I get them prescribed to me by my doctor, so I just pay $1 copay and I get an entire box.
Hell yeah.
So, and my wife did the same thing with patches. She paid $1 copay and got an entire month's worth of patches. And she still has some left over because she's not even using the patch anymore. She's got like 50 days without nicotine.
Hell
And
yeah.
she's like, I still have patches left over if you want to try one. I'm like, nah, I'm good, not ready. Like I'm just not ready yet. When did you start smoking cigarettes?
13.
That's how old I was. Around the same time I
Mhm.
discovered weed.
Yep.
And I learned how to inhale with a black and mild.
Ooh.
Yeah, that shit was harsh. And then it became the only way I knew how to smoke was to inhale. So every time I smoked a black and mild, I would inhale the entire thing. And then I realized it's safer for me just to smoke cigarettes than it is these black and milds. And I switched to smoking cigarettes instead. Um,
Yeah.
did you start smoking weed first or was it cigarettes first? For me, it was
Um,
cigarettes.
I think it was cigarettes. And weed was like right really close. And so
Yeah,
was drinking. It was all within like 1 year when I just turned rotten.
turned bad. Yeah, I was definitely in like seventh grade and I thought I was cool as shit because I smoked cigarettes. And every time, did your parents smoke?
Yeah.
Okay, my parents didn't smoke. So I would walk in the house and I would smell like cigarettes. And they'd be like,
Hmm.
why do you smell like cigarettes? And I'd be like, oh, I was at blah, blah, blah's house and their parents smoke. And that was always my excuse was I was at somebody else's house where their parents smoked.
Yeah, I loved it because they'd butt cigarettes and like half cigarettes and leave them in the ashtray and stuff, and I could just steal them.
No, I had to like stand outside 7-Eleven and ask random strangers to buy me cigarettes.
Yeah.
One dude fucked me over so bad, like he might as well have just kept my money. He came back out and handed me a pack of Virginia Slims.
Ew.
You can't be cool at 13 years old and smoke cigarettes meant for your grandmother.
I stole some of those from my grandpa before, and I thought they were terrible when I was like 13.
Yeah,
So
that's what I mean. They were not for my age. It was
no,
not an age appropriate cigarette. Go back and get me some Parliament Lights or some Marlboro. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
I smoked Parliament. I went through different. What do you smoke?
I started on like basics when basics used to be cheap, and Marlboro Reds because my friend's mom smoked Marlboro Reds. And then when Marlboro Smooth came out, I went through a phase where I smoked Smooths because they tasted so good. But now I smoke full flavor Marlboros. I smoke the blacks. I would smoke reds, but they're too expensive.
Oh, okay. I smoked 27s.
The Blend 27 Marlboros.
Yep,
Is that what you
yep.
mean? Okay, I've tried those. They had coupons on them sometimes.
Yeah, that's so my progression was Parliament Lights, Marlboro Menthol Lights. Um, and back, in the early 2000s when I started smoking, because I started smoking cigarettes in 99. And a couple years later, Marlboro 27s came out. I think I was like 16 when Marlboros came out. And they came in buy one, get one packs. Buy one pack, get one free as like a promotion. And so I started buying them because I can get two packs for the price of one. And then I
Hmm.
fell in love with them and I smoked them for like 5 years. And then Camel Crushes came out and I started buying them because they were like $2 off for a pack of Camel Crushes. Like they were cheaper.
Hmm.
Um, and I wouldn't crush it because I like 27s too much, like that kind of taste. So I wouldn't crush it, the little ball inside. And then like I was really high one night. I would crush it at the end just to have the satisfaction of crushing it, but I wouldn't actually smoke it. And then I was like really high and I crushed it in the beginning. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to waste the cigarette. Then I was like, oh, this tastes really good. And I smoked Camel Crushes for like 7 years after that. Until I was in rehab in 2018. And if you have Camel Crushes in rehab, everyone's going to bum cigarettes off you because that means you basically have best of both worlds. You have menthols and you have regular flavored cigarettes. And I noticed that everyone was like crushing them whenever I would give out cigarettes. So I switched to 27s again because people stopped asking me for cigarettes because they weren't menthol. And I noticed that nobody was asking them about a cigarette off me anymore. And I've been smoking 27 since then. I smoked LDs for like a month when I was like really broke a couple years ago and I wasn't working and I was just like getting unemployment and like limited funds. So I started smoking LDs because they were like $6 a pack instead of 10.
Sure.
And now I don't know what they're at with you, but here it's like $11 for a pack of Marlboro.
They come to about 10 with tax.
Yeah, it's a little over 11. It's like 11.40. But the 7-Eleven near me does a deal where you can save $2.20 if you buy two packs. So instead of it being $23, I end up paying $20.50 and I get two packs at a time.
Yeah.
So it saves me a couple bucks. It's not like those cigarettes are gonna go to waste. If anything, it helps me to save a trip. How much do you smoke?
I really don't smoke that much. Just maybe like 5 cigarettes a day. It just depends. Sometimes I'm more anxious. I smoke more, but I don't smoke like a whole lot.
Oh, I
It
definitely
just depends. I mean, sometimes I do. Some weeks I do. It just depends.
I definitely smoke a lot.
Well, it's like that.
Yeah, I definitely smoke like 15 a day.
Damn, that's like a whole pack.
Yeah, sometimes it
A
is a
pack
whole
lasts me like 4 days.
I wish. I need to get back. I need to get back down to that. Like the nicotine. If it wasn't for nicotine gum, I would smoke even more.
Since you smoke so much, you should just roll your own.
No, I want my Marlboros, and I want them.
That's what I'd say too. I mean, if you're gonna smoke, I might as well smoke something I like. I used
Exactly.
to roll cigarettes when I was on drugs, though,
Did
because
you
I needed
really?
money for drugs. Yeah.
I the last 2 years that I was using, I my dad and my brother and myself had a plumbing company, and we all had gas cards, like to give our drivers gas cards, and all three of us had gas cards too. And I would use the gas card to put gas in my tank, but also to buy cigarettes every day. Um, and that's how I afforded my cigarettes for the last 2 years of my using, is because they were paid for. And in my relapse, it's not like my when I had my relapse earlier this year, it had nothing to do with money because I paid $1 to get a whole script of Valium. It's not like I was buying them on the street. You know what I mean? Like my relapse came in the form of pills that were prescribed to me.
Yeah,
I was just going through an entire script in days instead of a month.
that's crazy. Yeah.
Like I was doing way too much Valium, and
Yeah.
I was snorting it too.
Ooh, yeah.
Like Xanax, there's no point to snort Xanax. Like if you snort a Xanax, it doesn't. You actually waste a Xanax if you snort it.
Huh.
If you eat a Xanax, you'll get higher than if you snort it.
That's what they say about like you get more of like a pain pill too if you eat it versus snorting it.
But the Xanax dissolves quicker than a painkiller. It's more soluble or whatever the fuck that word is. It breaks
Sure.
down quicker. So you actually get just as high, if not more high, if you eat a Xanax as opposed to snorting it. But
Huh.
Valium, um, I got used to going on Wikipedia and looking up the drugs that I was doing, and I would see like if you go to oxycodone on Wikipedia in its description, it'll say um like inner it'll say like IV use, intranasal, intramouth, and it's all the methods that can be taken. And so you could shoot it, you can snort it, you can eat it. On Xanax, it doesn't mention intranasal as a method of using it.
Hmm.
But Valium, when I looked that up, it said intranasal. So I was like, "Oh, cool! Now I can snort my Valium." The worst thing I ever did was look that shit up. But what are you gonna do? All I know is it's been 5 months since my relapse now. Coming back from my relapse, April 1st was my recovery date now, my clean date. And 4.5 years without a sip of alcohol, 6+ years since I've done an opiate. Well, willingly done an opiate. When I had my gallbladder taken out, they gave me fentanyl, and I told them not to.
Yeah.
I told them not to. Don't give me any opiates, I said before I went under. And then I woke up high as shit. And I said to the nurse, like, I'm really high. She was like, oh, it's probably just the anesthesia wearing off. I said, no. I said, I recognize this. I'm high. And the doctor came in and I was like, what did you guys give me while I was under? He was like, well, you looked uncomfortable. So we gave you 2 shots of Dilaudid and 1 of fentanyl. I was like, bro, what the fuck? I'm going to go into withdrawals. And he was like, I thought you said it's been 3 years since you've done opiates. And I was like, it has, but my body is not going to know that. And my body's going to go into withdrawals. And sure as shit, it was an outpatient surgery. I get into the parking lot and I started throwing up immensely. And
Uh-uh.
that throwing up persisted for 18 hours. I had incisions on my stomach that I had to like keep place with like a pillow while I got sick.
Yeah.
That shit sucked. But all I know is coming up on 200 episodes, and you've been on 7 times, and I appreciate each time you take the time to sit down and chat. And I'm sure you'll do more, because why wouldn't you?
Exactly.
So keep on doing what you're doing in the community. Love to see it when it comes to recovery and how much outreach you do.
Yeah.
The local people appreciate it too.
You like
And
my shirt?
does that say free naloxone?
Narcan saves lives, free naloxone. It says Narcan do no harm. I love that. It's from our health department, but
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect shirt for this. Dark.
Yeah,
All right. Have a good night, Ashlee.
see ya.
See ya.